This meeting's called to order at 6:56. This special meeting of Judson Board of Trustees hereby called to order at 6:55. In compliance with State Government Code on open meetings, tonight's agenda has been posted appropriately. We got to call roll call again. Mr. Macias?
Present.
Mr.
Welcome.
Foyle?
Here.
Dr. Salinas?
Present.
Mr. Salinas?
Present.
Ms. Shaw?
Present.
Mr. Flores?
Present.
Steve Schreier, I'm present. Dr. Batoya?
Present. And again, if you don't mind, very quickly here to my left, Mr. Milton Fields, Executive Director of Operations, Ms. Irma Hernandez, Executive Director of Human Services, Mr. Jose Elizondo, Chief Financial Officer. To my right, Ms. Elida Berra, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Ed, and again, sitting in the audience, Ms. Tori Austin, our Executive Director for Curriculum Instruction, and our Board Secretary, Jacqueline Perez.
Okay. Let's move on to number 3, discussion and consideration of action items. 3A, consider take possible action regarding approving the proposed budget for the 2015-16 school year.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Flores. Second, Mr. Macias. Discussion. Ms. Shaw?
Okay. There is an item that I would like to have pulled for discussion, please. In your board book on page 12, the item Understanding Our Differences. I'd like to have that pulled for an amendment.
So you want to make a motion to amend?
To amend, yes, sir. Page 12, sir.
So make your motion to amend. That you want to amend 999, understanding our differences?
Turn on
Yeah.
turn off the lights. Thank you.
I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. LaFoille. Ms. Shaw?
Yes, sir, thank you. That item 999, Understanding Our Differences, I'm requesting that we do something else with that $20,000. I still do not see the justification for it being at the one campus. My recommendation is to take the $20,000 and divide it between each middle school. And if each middle school has a certain amount of money that could be earmarked for that same type of program or something that is near that program, like discipline, management, or anti-bullying, I believe that there needs to be an equity at every middle school. I cannot justify it just being at one middle school. I can see dividing that so that every middle school has the same amount of money to use it for the same type of program or something like it. And I'd like to entertain the discussion of the rest of the board. Thank you.
Mr. LaFoille?
I agree with you, Renee. That's a elementary program in the first place. Why it's doing in middle school, I don't know. I listened to what she said last week. I agree there's been a change in the school, but I don't believe it was a program that made that change. So I agree with you that we should pull this and put it elsewhere.
Mr. Macias?
What is the, just point of clarification as well, the amendment would be then, that we're voting on is to reallocate the $20,000, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's my request because I can't see the justification for it just being at one middle school. I am of the opinion that all middle schools need to have the same equitability, and if that amount of money could be divided between all of the middle schools, then maybe there would be a program of that nature that each middle school could partake in.
Well, I appreciate clarification on that amendment. My concern, obviously, is that we've seen actually some really good growth at Metzger. And I know that you acknowledge that there's a need to address students' sensitivity and so on. We need to work to limit our bullying and other issues that may happen at these campuses. I also agree that we do need a uniformed program. And it was unfortunate that this type of program is not something that can be uniformly applied to all of the middle school campuses. The other concern was that middle schools typically have the autonomy to select the type of program that they'd like to implement based on their student population. So this program may not be a one-size-fits-all. It may be only applicable to Metzger. And so I obviously would think if we went down this path of dismantling this program in its current construct, that we would then put all of the middle school principals together to come up with a uniformed program. I love that concept. I think that builds a stronger district. But in the interim, there is no plan. So I think it would actually hinder Metzger Middle School to eliminate this program at this time and take the information and request that you have today before us, Ms. Pichelle, and just truly create a program that can be universally accepted in some way throughout the district. So again, my biggest concern is that Metzger has shown some serious progress. This program has worked in part, and I think if we were to reverse it, it would make things a little more challenging at Metzger.
Mr. LaFoille.
Well, I looked at this program. Program is geared for elementary, not middle school. And as far as making progress, I think the progress was made by the teachers and not the program. The thing is, we're putting this in a middle school when it should be in elementary. Elementary is where we need to start these kids to learn to not to bully, to not go out there and, you know, just do the things that kids do. The thing is, I think it's out of place where it is. And I think we ought to take and look at it in a different perspective here and go out and look for a program that all the elementaries can use and something that'll bring those kids to middle school knowing what they should do and what they shouldn't do.
Dr. Salinas.
Yes, Ms. Bashal and I actually researched this a couple of weeks ago. I pulled it up on the website, and it's called Understanding Our Differences: How Do You Teach Elementary School Children to Develop Understanding and Respect for Fellow Students and Others with Physical, Sensory, or Developmental Disabilities. So I don't know if we have this titled incorrectly or not, but I agree with Mr. Macias that schools can select programs that they want, but we have to budget for it as campus principals. So we decide what we want with our site-based decision-making team, and then we have to put it in our budget. This was originally put on this budget paid for by the school board. At least it said school board request, and now that's been removed. I understand that, but I also agree with Ms. Pashal in that we need to be equitable, and bullying occurs at all schools, elementary, middle school, and high school, and I don't think keeping it at one campus for an elementary school program, at least that's what it says on the website, and it also says it's a nonprofit organization, so I don't know if we're just making a donation or how that's happening. So I agree, we should split it up.
Ms. Bashal.
I'm going to withdraw. It looks like I don't need to repeat what I've heard.
Mr. Flores.
Thank you. When they spoke about this program, they came up, Ms. Ross came up and told us that this is something they requested. And the deal was they gave us a year free, and then we picked up the expense. We picked it up as a board item, and you know, this program cannot be expanded right now because of they're under restraint from, they don't have the teachers to help our teachers. The way I look at this is working right now at Metzger, And if other principals come up with something and they find a program and they were to present it to us in, October, November, we would definitely, if they could get that kind of deal where the people will give a little bit and, we can work it out, I don't see why we can't go into the fund balance for it then. If other principals pick it up. Ms. Ross went out and found this program. And yeah, it's an elementary program, but it came from the high school, is my understanding. We have problems throughout the system. And I think if it's working here, maybe there's something else that the Kirby principal can find and say, hey, we'd like to bring this in. If they can work a deal where like this one was worked, I just think that this needs to stay right now. Because I don't think that you can give $5,000 to each school and they can do, 4,000, we have 5 middle schools. And they can do what's being done at Metzger. That's just my opinion on that. Thank you.
Okay. I have to agree with what Mr. Salinas said last meeting, that we're going down a slippery slope, and we're starting. I understand what you want to do, Mr. Shaw, but $4,000, my question is, what can any principal do with $4,000 for a program? I'm sure a principal will find $4,000 to do something with, but I'm not sure that we can get a program for $4,000. And I understand the equity part, why does one school get it and the other school doesn't? So I'm kind of on a slippery slope here that we start this, next thing you know, we'll be spending $100,000 on these programs that's not budgeted in the school's budget. Mr. Shaw.
Well, I am going to have to repeat what I said, because, I am not suggesting that Ms. Ross get rid of the program. What I'm suggesting is that that school have $4,000, and whatever it is that she feels the need to do with her budget to continue this program, then she can do that. If the other principals weren't expecting to have an additional $4,000, I'm not saying that this program is a $4,000 program. I'm saying that this $4,000 can be used in addition to whatever it is that they might do and find that would suit what that campus needs.
Okay, Jackie, let's make sure we got the motion. The motion is distribute the $20,000, $4,000 for each middle school, correct? No, we got to do this is the motion. To amend it. It's motion to amend it. I'm about to pull it, we're amending it. Okay, let's do a vote here. Okay? Is it blinking yet? Oh, it's got to blink. Yeah, when it starts blinking. It's not blinking. Gilbert, it's not blinking. I've done it, man. Vote. There we go. Now we got it. I know I did. Okay, hit vote, Richard? I got to right click, right? I hit it. So, motion fails. Okay?
Motion for the amendment.
Motion for the amendment fails, correct. So it's in the budget as is. Okay? The motion was to amend the budget, the item, the $20,000, divide it 5 ways. The motion was voted down. It was no.
I'd like to make a motion.
Right? It was voted no. The motion was voted down, 4-3, right?
Motion for the amendment.
Motion for the amendment's
To amend
down.
the budget.
Right, to amend the budget.
Right.
Okay? Right? It was voted down. It's right. Okay, why is everybody looking at me? Everybody looking at me like I'm wrong. It was voted
Aye.
down.
I'd like to speak.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amend the budget to take this out completely because it's unfair to the other middle schools.
Do I have a second?
I'll give him a second.
Second, Mr. Salinas.
Yes,
Discussion, Mr. LaFoille.
First off, one school's getting $20,000 more than any other school. I think if this school thinks this is working, take it out of their budget, their own budget, spend their own money, and let the rest of the schools do the same thing if they want something like this. Because this came to us a couple years ago. It was a good thing. I've been over to that school. I believe it's not the program that's doing the good over there. It's the way the teachers are teaching now. A couple years ago, I said in closed session on a bullying, we don't have them anymore because the teachers have seen the light. They're going out and doing what they should do to keep these kids on the straight and narrow. I think if we pull this out, let them spend their own money.
Mr. Macias.
I had an opportunity, again, just to reiterate, that I did have a chance to sit down and participate in this program. And the openness that occurred was very eye-opening. I mean, you had kids that had some real issues with bullying, and Metzger had some problems. And I'm not saying that our other schools are not. I would say that we're here for the kids, and we want to make sure that our kids are taken care of. And so we don't want them focused on having to have fights in the bathroom or being called names or any of those things. So we want them to focus on education. If, and I just say this, if I know that my colleagues, I'll take that back. I cannot speak on behalf of my colleagues. But I know that if I was approached by any other middle school principal about a program, I certainly would entertain the idea of discussing it, especially since we know that every middle school is different, and they will have their own needs. I know that Metzger is strapped for cash. That's why they approached the board last year to try to remedy the problem. And I know that the first year this program was given in kind. So I won't be, I guess I will be a little disappointed if we decide to not move forward with this program. But my question would be, what will we put in its place? Because there's still a need. And I think that as a district, we need to develop a uniformed plan. I think that this plan could really be that foundation of a uniformed plan. And I will tell you, I would have added more money to the budget, at least recommended, had this program had the capacity for expansion. And it does not. It can only be at Metzger Middle School. So that's unfortunate, because even if I were to say, hey, let's put $100,000 and all of the schools have a $20,000 program, it's just not possible. So again, I would just go back with allowing our middle school principals that autonomy to implement programs that they know will help their students. And again, that's what we're here for our kids.
Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Absolutely, Mr. Macias, you're correct about the kids. But I'd like to ask a question. This particular item was board requested. It was not requested from the staff. It was board requested. So I'd like to know that how are you going to be able to hold the board accountable for a program at all, since it was not a program that was requested by staff? How do you hold staff accountable for a program that wasn't requested by them?
Well, and the reason it wasn't requested by staff is because they didn't have any money in their budget. The recommendation was on countless visits to middle schools, Metzger being one of them. It was requested that if we had funding, we could implement this program very aggressively. And so the board request was simply putting the item on the agenda and adding it to the budget and discussing it as a board. The board voted to support this program for a year. And so that's how that transpired. accountability is absolutely imperative. I mean, and so that's why I was very pleased with Mrs. Ross's presentation, because she was able to parallel increase scores with the program and with other variables. She didn't say the program alone made all the difference, but she did say that it was definitely a part of the piece of the puzzle. And so in that respect, the program certainly has helped the school. And if scores are the residual of that, I simply would just say it's working.
She did mention that, Mr. Macias, you're correct, but there was no justification that those scores were due to that program. She couldn't show that. She couldn't show it on that chart.
And you couldn't do the opposite. You couldn't say that it wasn't a result of that program. You really couldn't.
There might have been a little bit more statistics that she could have shown, but she showed statistics asking the kids, how do you like this program? Well, kids are going to automatically, obviously say that they like it, they love it, and they want to keep it.
Mr. Salinas.
Thank you, Mr. Salyer. Last week, when I asked the question, is the money going to be used for salaries? And I believe they said yes, for the nonprofit organization, the people that come and work with our students. And I don't know at the time whether I asked, was that legal to be paying salaries even though they're not our employees? Can you help me with that, Dr. Montoya or Mr. Lizondo?
Well, go ahead.
What happens, Mr. Salinas, is that we're not paying the salaries, their nonprofit's paying them because those are employees of the nonprofit. We just pay, they send us an invoice for the services, the consultant services, or the contract services that we have with them, and that's what we're paying for. Then once it reaches their business, their point, then they pay their employees in salaries.
Okay, also, I said last week, if we're going to do it for one middle school, we needed to be prepared for the other middle schools that might come along the line in the next few months, say, oh, you know what? I want to start a program, it's going to cost us $20,000. We cannot say, no, you didn't put it in the budget. We can't do that. If we're going to do it for one middle school, and I agree with Ms. Pacheco, we have to be equal. Maybe they'll come up with a different program, but they need that funding. I think we're going to open a can of worms, because that'll make it easy for the other middle school or high school principals to come back and say, you know what, we'd like to try this, but we need some funding. And like I said, if it's for the kids, I'm all for it. But we have to be equal later on if they happen to come back. Thank you.
Mr. Flores.
Thank you. Well, I can agree with that if a principal were to come up and say, I've got a program here, and they're going to present it to us and let us use it for a year before we accept it. Because that's what we did here. Yeah. They came by and they gave us a free, no, 1 year, second year we paid for it, I believe, my understanding.
We did?
Yeah, but the first year we got free for them to work it, to see what's going on. And if a school brings that to us, I'll support it. But there has to be, they have to look at the programs and see if they think it will work. Because anybody can present something and, it looks great on paper, but until it's actually working, it may not, you have to see what's going on. So I can support, that if Judson Middle School came up and say, hey, board, we have this program that we think might work. They agreed to put it out for 6-8 months or for this school year, and then we'll decide whether we want to keep it or not. I don't have any problem with that. Thank you.
Mr. Salinas.
What I wanted to tell Ms. Pacheco, she wasn't here at the time. They had Mr. Macias correct me on that one. It was the STEM students that were invited. What was it, engineering at UTSA? And
Yes,
we
that's correct.
allocated money for 50 students from all the middle schools.
Yeah, that was
whoever applied. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we did help in that aspect. We made it for all the middle schools, whoever applied. It was not mandatory or anything. So, I want to support this, but again, see how the board feels. Thank you.
Okay, the motion on the table was 999, understanding our difference, pulling $20,000 from the budget. Let's vote.
Tell them what a yes vote is and a no vote.
Huh? Okay. Yes vote is to pull it, no vote is to keep it in. Okay? Okay, we're not blinking. There we go. There we go, and tally. Okay, it's 5-2, motion carries, it's pulled from the budget. Okay?
It's what?
Pulled from the budget, okay. Correct. Okay, so, this is the budget. Any more amendments, any more discussion before we pass the budget? Mr.
I
Salinas?
wanted to make an amendment
Okay,
for $25,000 to support the one more mandated, unfunded from the state of Texas for all the school districts to pay for it. It's nothing new. You know how you and I feel about that, sir. But I was advised to go ahead and wait till we get the final ruling or whatever is going to require from the state. I just wanted to be ahead of the game to put at least $25,000 on the budget. But I'm going to take the recommendation that I'm going to go ahead and wait. That's why I gave you all this article that it was in the Express and News 3 days ago. So in the future, we need to think about that. Whatever they come in, and I believe Dr. Montoya, I met with him yesterday, he was already on the ball. He had already checked it out. He already had his employees looking, how many classrooms do you think we're going to have? What do you think is going to be the cost? And I also talked to Mr. Elizondo, and I think the recommendation to go ahead and wait before we make any amendments to this budget. And I'm going to agree to that, but I wanted everybody to be aware of that. Thank you, sir. I'm pulling my amendment. Thank
no
you.
amendment. Okay, we're back. Any more amendments, any more discussion?
I have a,
Jose, Mr. Macias?
yes, in this particular motion, we are also going to move for the new staffing reclassification request as well. So those that are number 1, correct? All right, just making sure. I'm looking through it one more time. That's it for right now.
Ms. LaFleur?
I got some questions for Jose.
Go ahead.
Jose, in here, the temporary technology services help desk technician. It's a $47,669. Is there enough money in the budget now to put that in?
With the removal of $20,000, and there was a $28,000 surplus initially, yes, sir, that's just enough to cover that position.
All right. I'd like to make a motion that we put this into the budget, help desk technician for technology services.
What page, sir?
Page 14.
The one that was a number 2?
One that was a number 2.
I'm sorry, for the audience purposes. The priority was number 2.
Priority was number 2.
Okay, okay, sir.
I put this in because help desk is something that's greatly needed with our personnel. Everybody uses it. I use it. My wife uses it. Everybody uses it. The thing is, they are way, way over what they should be handling there. They lose in a day. Can I ask Steve Young some questions?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Steve,
Mr.
can
Young,
you
if
come
you'll
up here,
step
please?
up to the,
In an average day, how many calls does the help desk get?
I don't have that in front of me. I do have the numbers, and I can look them up real quickly for you, but and I know our numbers, typically, there's a large percentage, to the tune of 40-50% of calls won't be answered every day at the help desk.
40%.
Because there's only one person, right? So there's high times and low times, but at the end of the day, there's just not enough people. If the average call takes 5 minutes and calls come in during that time, they're just gonna go to voicemail.
By putting this back in the budget, in giving you that person, would that help you a whole lot?
Yes, it would help. Actually, this past year, we had a temporary, almost the full year assisting in that, the one person in the help desk. So we really almost had two all of last year. And at times, we actually manned it with three, so we'd pull a technician. So we know we can easily, use two in that position, probably more, but at the end of the day, it will greatly help out.
Thank
And
you.
let us provide better service.
I'd like to put this back in the budget. It's technology services, help desk technician, currently a help desk entire district operated by one staff member, and an average of about 100 calls are going unanswered on a weekly basis. It's for $47,669.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Salinas. Discussion? Anyone?
I'm pressing my button.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Macias.
So the 47,000 is with benefits, so what would that, and you said about 15%, right? 15% of that is, so we get an idea of what that would be. And this position, I guess, Dr. Montoya or Mr. Young, would cater to the entire district? Yeah, absolutely. Well, good, yeah, I can support that, just needed to confirm that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're back on the original budget. Any more? Yes, sir.
Board members, I just wanted to read into the record to make sure that it gets in the minutes that when the board adopts this budget, part of what's in this budget is, and we've discussed this during some of the meetings, but I just wanted to be real clear, is that we're going to be eliminating the HIB or the HIB program that's offered with our health program for our employees. And we're going to take those premium dollars to increase the employer contribution towards the health insurance program. So now the new employer contribution, currently it's $300 per employee per month, is going to go to $355 per employee per month. I just want to make sure that's in the minutes. Thank you.
But sir, that's already included
It
in
is
the
in the
budget,
budget,
right?
but I just wanted to make sure
Thank
that.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any more discussion on it? Let's vote on the budget.
Voting to adopt the budget.
Voting to
As
adopt the
amended.
budget. Yeah,
Whatever.
with
we
a
have.
minute. We have an
Yes,
amendment
thank you, sir.
with one amendment.
Thank you.
Okay, yes means you vote for the budget, approve the budget. Need some WD-40 there, Melinda. Okay. Okay, 7-0, budget amend. Okay, we're going to 3B. Consider and take possible action regarding amendments to the budget for the 2014-15 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Macias, second by Mr. LaFoille. Any discussion? Any comments, discussion?
Mr. Elizondo already discussed that with us.
Yeah, these are the amendments. Okay, if everybody's ready, let's, hit Ms. Lee? Oh, okay, she quick. Clear. Okay, got to revote here. Okay, ready, let me get there. Okay, yes is to accept it. Accept the amendment. 7-0. We're good to go. Okay, let me clear this. Y'all fast tonight. Cool. Okay, 3C, consider and take possible action regarding approving proposed compensation plan for the 2015-16 school year. Do I have a motion? Motion, Mr. LaFoille.
Second.
Second, Mr. Flores. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Salinas?
This is for all district employees, not just the teachers, librarians. Okay. I just want to make sure. sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Oh, hold on, Mr. Macias, go ahead.
I guess going back to our last discussion, we had talked about the 70% of our employees fitting under 5 years, and just for my own sake, the 30% that fall within over 5 years. Is that correct? Am I remember that, Mr. Elizondo or Mr. Hernandez? Okay. how many employees is that looking like? Is it 1,000 teachers? I mean, I'm looking at, we have about 2,800 teachers, maybe? No? 1,400. So we have 1,400 teachers. I can say 70% of them then are under 5 years. I'm just seeking clarification on that.
Sorry. 42% are 0-year teachers, 1 to 5 are 26%.
Okay. So that's 68%
Yes.
that fall under that. The current increase, I like the TASB study with the step increases for the positions to make it more competitive. I'm considering amending the motion to add a 4% pay increase to 5 years plus, but I need to have an idea of what that cost would be, just a ballpark. So based on teachers that are over 5 years, which at this point is 32% of our teachers would fit into that. So
Could you repeat again what you're?
if we were to increase to 4%, the increase for teachers 5 years plus, rather than the recommended one, what that would look like.
You know, we can get you those numbers, but I'm gonna need a few minutes. It's not gonna be something that I can, you would have to take a recess for a little bit and let us calculate, because I can't just tell you that number off the top of my head.
Okay, so,
Do you want to make a motion to amend, Mr. Macias, or what do you want to do?
Well, Mr. Elizondo, Jose, I know that we're going to, as a board, look at that issue a little further as we go forward. I honestly just wanted to get a ballpark figure, because if I'm going to make that amendment, I'd like to know what that cost would be. At our last meeting, it appeared there was not consensus for it, so I don't want to do a study in academics. I mean, I would like to put something tangible that's going to be supported. So you can hold off on that, and we'll look at, again, looking at possibly for the following year, but certainly building into our plans some strategy for retention of our more experienced teachers, where we're seeing a gap. And so I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Salinas?
Mr. Macias. Yes, the experienced teachers, 5 and above, I think that's what you said. We've been hiring quite a few teachers that have a lot of experience. Well, not, let's say 10, 15 years. Are you talking about teachers that have been with Judson since the beginning? Or does that include just anybody just got hired yesterday or last week or last month in the future? Or are we just going to say only those employees that have been with Judson?
To be honest, I hadn't considered that aspect of it, and that's definitely a very good question.
But that's good.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
good question.
We're going to be discussing that in
Yeah.
the future, and definitely.
I would imagine, since it really is a mechanism for retention, that it would be those within the district for that amount of time, just to put that out there.
Oh,
But I think that
regardless
would
of
be-
where they came from.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
okay.
the
Okay,
goal
so-
is to retain them in the district
Yes,
and
sir.
garner that type of experience.
In the future, I don't
Yeah.
have a problem working with that too. Thank you.
I'd like to say something that, you know, we got a budget. If we want to entertain that later on, we can. Take it out fund back, because Mr. Lozano has to get the numbers and Well, I'm not gonna vote on anything and I don't have solid numbers for, so. Mr. Shaw? Nope, good. Any other discussion? We will vote. Okay, yes approves. Okay, 7-0, we have a budget. Okay. New hires, do we need to go in closed session? Mr. Hernandez, we need to go in closed session? Okay, we will go into closed session here. We have a budget, folks. Hold on here, I gotta do this one. This board will now adjourn to closed session pursuant to the following section of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Pursuant to Texas Code, Section 551.04, discussing personnel. No final action, decision, or vote shall be taken while this board is in closed session. The board shall reconvene the meeting after the closed session. If necessary, vote on any decision will be made in open session prior to adjourning the meeting. We are adjourned at 7:37. Jackie?